To Selhurst Park then. They classify this as a derby game, Crystal Palace versus Brighton. Not sure why, possibly because their nicknames are both birds. Palace, of course, are the Eagles, and Brighton are the Seagulls. Well, less of that frivolity. What about the action? Well, Palace, 1 point in their last home game, 6 home games, so they desperately needed a winner to keep their fans happy. And Brighton, dreadful away record. Last time they got anything away from home was at the beginning of December. So to the action. We went to the first goal, which was on 19 minutes. Ryan punted the ball down the field. A huge bounce, flipped over the top of the defence. Murray latched onto it quickly. He then hit the ball from the right side of the penalty area, the edge of the box. It was a delightful effort. It went just in the corner, and that was 1-0 for Brighton on 19 minutes. A little later, Zaha was causing trouble, and Montoya brought him down. He was given a yellow for that. And another attack on 28 minutes, but this time Zaha's effort was blocked by Dunk. From a corner, Tompkins' header forced a good save from Ryan, but Brighton were good in possession, and Palace did lack that creativity up front. So another crucial block to deny Batshuayi just before the half-time whistle. So it was 1-0 for Brighton at the break. Into the second half now, and within a few minutes, some pressure from Palace, and Townsend got the ball just inside the box, jinked right and left, and he was caught and he went over, and the referee awarded a penalty. Now, Crystal Palace have the best penalty taker in the division, Mihajlovic. He's converted unbelievable 17 penalties for Palace, and surprise, surprise, he made it number 18 with ease. So we were back level at 1 each. Following that goal, there were no real clear-cut chances at either end, and it was looking like we might be ending up as a draw. Palace was certainly giving the ball to Zaha, but he was sometimes overdoing it, and he should lay the pass off more often. Anyway, on 73 minutes, Knockaert, who was lucky to still be on the pitch, he made a dreadful tackle early on in the first half. Anyway, he picked the ball up on the right, and he cut inside, and he unleashed an absolutely pile driver of a left foot shot that curled in the top corner. Absolutely no chance for the keeper, and Albion were back in front. The Palace manager Hodgson brought on Benteke for Townsend, and in the last minute of added time, Slop had a chance, but he hit the ball over the top. A very, very encouraging win for Chris Hughton's men. Final score, Crystal Palace 1, Brighton 2. Cardiff City Stadium, West Ham, the visitors. Mango was in the defence for Cardiff for Samba. Sounds like we're having some fun in an African party, but nevertheless, Hernandez was up front, and Arnautovic still stuck on the bench. Well, Cardiff really dominated this match, and they got off to a great start after 4 minutes when Hoylett connected with a half volley from a cross from Murphy, and that was 1-0 for Cardiff. They should have gone 2 up a little later from Niaji, but the defence managed to hold firm. That was it at the break. Into the second half, and Cardiff continued to dominate, and within 7 minutes of the restart, Camarasara, I think I've got that pronounced, Camarasare, finished off anyway. A good move by Cardiff. Murphy heading on a toilet cross goalwards, and the said Camarasare was a yard out and finished it off 2-0. Fabianski made a couple of great saves to prevent the score widening. There were a couple of late efforts from West Ham. Rice hit a post and Arnautovic forced a good save from Edridge. But all in all, West Ham were extremely disappointing, and Pellegrini really needs to sit down and work out why his side are so bad when they leave London. For Cardiff, a great win, and it will help in their fight to beat the drop. John Smith Stadium then, bottom club Huddersfield entertaining Bournemouth. Bournemouth are slowly falling into the relegation area. Their good form at the start of the season was keeping them at bay. Anyway, Moy was in for Huddersfield, and Callum Wilson was back after a 6-week absence for Bournemouth. And that man Wilson didn't take long to remind us all of his prolific goal-scoring form. On 20 minutes, he was at the end of a neat Fraser cross, and that was 1-0 to the Cherries. Into the second half now. King and Wilson and Fraser all looking good, and then on 66 minutes, another swift move from those three, and Fraser was the man at the end of it, and he scored from 10 yards to put Bournemouth 2 up. After that, it really ended as a contest. Final score then, Huddersfield 0, Bournemouth 2. Okay, to the King Power Stadium. Leicester at home to Fulham. The two new managers on view here, Brendan Rodgers for Leicester and Scott Parker for Fulham. Okay, so into the action then. Leicester had the better of the early action, and on 21 minutes, a typical break by Leicester. They're so quick on the break, and Vardy managed to set up Tielemans, who was following up, and he had an open goal, and that was 1-0 for the Foxes. That was about it really from the first half action into the second half, and Fulham had been much more impressive after they went behind. And on 51 minutes, Ayiti, who was making his debut, came in from the right, hit a shot at goal. It had a deflection off Maguire and went past Schmeichel, and so we were level 1-1. From there on, Leicester upped the pace a little. Rico had to be good to stop Barnes' curling shot, and then Vardy took over. He really is quite prolific when it comes to scoring goals, and he was put through on 78, and his pace of course is wicked, and he got into the penalty box and stroked the ball wide of Rico into the corner. It was 2-1, and then a little bit later, 86, Barnes, who's looking at an increasing presence in the Leicester front line, he managed to set up Vardy, and he clipped the ball inside the post, and that was 3-1 for the Foxes. Deserved win then for Brendan Rodgers. Standout play from Jamie Vardy. He's now had over 100 goals for Leicester, which is pretty impressive. In the modern era, there's only Gary Lineker has done that. So well done. So the final score then, Leicester 3, Fulham won. Match of the day was at St James's Park, Newcastle at home to Everton. Coleman unfortunately didn't make the starting lineup. He became sick in the warm-up, and Longstaff, who's been very good for the Magpies, he was injured, so he was out as well. It's very much a game of two halves. The first half, definitely Everton, the better team. And let's have a look at the action from that first half then. On 18 minutes, a cross from Dana on the left, delightful cross, was headed wide of Dubravka by Calvert-Lewin, and 1-0 then to Everton. Then we had a very strange event. What happened was that Ritchie put in a very good cross from the left. Pickford jumped up to catch it. He then dropped it, and Rondon, trying to seize the opportunity, got the ball, but then Pickford managed to pull him down, thus preventing him from engaging with the ball. Now, it looked a clear red card to everyone in the stadium, but the referee awarded a penalty and a yellow. In the confusion, Pickford then saved Ritchie's effort, and so we were still at 1-0. Not long after that, Gomez got to the byline, and his cross was parried by Dubravka, but it went straight to Richarlison, and that was 2-0 for Everton after 32 minutes. So, got to the break, Everton 2 up. Into the second half, and things changed rather quickly. Rondon managed to get ahead of Kenny, and he's chipped it over Pickford, but it went desperately just wide. But then on 65 minutes, a beautiful move involving Perez and Rondon, linking beautifully, and Rondon's volley whistled past Pickford to bring the scores back to 2-1. From then on, Newcastle were well on top, and Perez showed what he was made of. On 81 minutes, Perez, following up a strike from the very good Almiron, which was poorly parried by the England keeper, and Perez slotted the ball home to level things at 2-2. Then we had an amazing incident which caused a lot of controversy. Newcastle were on the attack. The ball was cleared out to midway between the halfway line and the penalty box. The Newcastle defender hoisted the ball up like an up and under. It came down and bounced high, and the attacking players, Rondon and Perez, anticipated the bounce, but Rondon collected the ball and he was in an offside position. But he pushed it to Perez, who wasn't offside, and Perez got his second, and the referee awarded a goal. So as you can imagine, Marco Silva wasn't too pleased at the final whistle, but Rafa Benitez was absolutely delighted. A great game then, and Newcastle taking it by 3-2. So to St Mary's. Southampton at home to Spurs. Spurs clearly jubilant after that Champions League success, and they brought back Dele Alli for this game. He'd been out for a number of weeks, and Eric Dyer was also back in the starting lineup. Southampton were unchanged, not surprising after that great performance at Old Trafford. And into the first half, and it was all Spurs. They were nonchalant in their use of possession, but a little bit sort of arrogant, to say the least. Kane had a couple of chances early on, one went wide and the other went over. They then caused some pressure which led Yoshida to push the ball onto his own post. But finally, on 26 minutes, Spurs eventually got their breakthrough, and Ali's beautiful chip over the top of the defence. Kane ran onto it and he clipped it in the corner, and so Spurs were 1-up and they were bossing everything. This led to Pochettino being extremely critical of their attitude at the final whistle. More about that later. So they went into the break 1-up. Second half, and Hasentuller brought on Long for the ineffective Austin. But they certainly were on the front foot, Southampton, and a different side from that we saw in the first half. Redmond had an opportunity, but he pluffed his shot. And then we got to the 76th minute, and Valerie, who scored that amazing goal last week, came up from the back and post, and Armstrong's cross from the left found him, and it was in the back of the net, and it was 1 each. From there on, Southampton were in the ascendancy and really pushing for it. 81 minutes, a free kick to Southampton just outside the penalty box, another 30-yard plus. And guess what? Ward-Prowse steps up. Remember, he found a great goal at Old Trafford last week. Well, he repeated the trick with a tremendous free kick that curled round the wall and hit the back of the net. Lloris, no chance. And Southampton, well done, Southampton, justified their improved performance, got to the finish line and won this game by 2-1. So we're at the Etihad, and firstly I'd like to point out that my results show, my last results show, I inexplicably had Man City at the Etihad when they beat Bournemouth, when in fact the action took place at the Vitality. So apologies for that. I've got it right this week though. They are at home to Watford, and Company and Mahrez were back in the starting lineup. 7 changes for Gracia in Watford's team. Quite amazing that, considering their recent results. First half action, well, there wasn't too much of it, to be perfectly honest. David Silva managed to head wide when he was free in the box, and Bernard Silva managed to seek out Aguero, and he also managed to head wide. So we got to the break, and that was from 6 yards, by the way, and we got to the break goalless into the second half, and things started to get hotted up quite considerably within a minute of the restart, when Sterling managed to get the ball in the net, admittedly slightly fortunate, as he connected with a defender at the time of shooting. Initially he was flagged offside because he was clearly in an offside position, but then the referee consulted with his linesman and the decision was reversed and a goal was given. I think it may have had something to do with the fact that the interpretation was that a defender had knocked the ball back to his goalkeeper and Sterling had got onto it. But he was in fact offside at an earlier moment. However, Gracia very, very angry, and Watford 1 down. And basically they never recovered from that. And Sterling, who is certainly a different player from the one we saw a couple of years ago, scored again on 50 minutes and then completed his hat-trick on 59 minutes. It was quite remarkable how quickly this hat-trick appeared. Second, he was at the far post and poached on a cross from Mahrez. And then he cuts in from the left, as he does often, and creates a yard of space and hit the ball in the corner. After that, the game was over, really, although Gracia brought on Deeney and Delafeu, and the said Delafeu grabbed a consolation goal on 66 minutes. So Manchester City increased their lead at the top to 4.